Thank you. Thank you, Declan, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I want to start by taking you to a mangrove grove in Bengal on the night of the 22nd of June, 1757, and Robert Clive is in his tent in command of an army, and he's anxious and he's angry. He's angry because he wants revenge for the fact that the ruler of Bengal has recently evicted Britons from the city of Calcutta. He's anxious because he's frightened his army is about to be defeated. He's waiting for kind of Indian allies to join him, and he doesn't know whether they're going to or not. The next morning, of course, Clive leads British troops at the Battle of Plassey. The Indians, who Clive's loyalty was doubtful about, did back him, and he ended up overthrowing the ruler of Bengal. And according to one version of stories, there began the conquest of India and the beginnings of the British Empire. I begin with this story, though, with Clive in his tent, because the British Empire was driven by the emotions that Clive felt at that moment, anger and anxiety. It isn't the kind of stable structure of rule that we like to think, and that Clive later went home and told the British public he'd created in India. Instead, it was a system of rule that spread across the world to buttress very particular, narrow British interests. First trade, then banking, and finally became something that was merely about protecting British power itself for its own sake, for no other reason, and until eventually it collapsed. And it's that sort of chaotic, unstable, often very passionate, moody, if you like, prickly, defensive, character of the Britons who ruled empire that powerfully structures the legacy of empire that we see around us throughout the world. Post-colonial states are not often stable. They've inherited British imperial structures' weakness, their chaos. What they often are interested in is precisely what the British were interested in doing throughout the areas of the world that they rule, which is to look impressive, to look powerful, to display big armies. But the reality is weak, incompetent forms of rule, which are never capable of developing the societies that they attempt to administer. You look, for example, at the Indian Penal Code, which the British put into place and then spread across the world to places like Nigeria and many parts of Africa. It has 49 articles which concern offences against the state and 11 about death. So it's more likely that you're going to be prosecuted for being nasty to a government official than it is that you're going to be prosecuted for murder. And that explains some of the kind of pathologies of post-colonial politics in areas. Look at the extraordinary proportion of government revenue that's spent on the military in post-colonial states. And similarly, that's very much a kind of post-colonial legacy, as governments like the colonial government are fearful of their ability to maintain their own power, elites to stay in power without troops. Look, for example, at the railways. One imagines that sort of imperial railway systems were this great thing that we need to celebrate. But they're designed to transport. They were designed to transport troops to borders so that borders could be defended, and to ship goods from areas where resources could be extracted to ports, not for the economic development of the countries concerned. So the British Empire was a system that was interested in asserting state power with no security for life or property in the territories that it covered. It's for that reason that I'm puzzled to find that two people who call themselves libertarians are opposing the motion, because empire was a failed statist project. It was a project that was about about imposing state power for its own sake and nothing else. Perhaps one might, imagine that my comments are, simply the sort of, someone from the right might say that these kind of arguments are the typical sort of mealy-mouthed arguments of someone from the left, doing down British institutions that spread law, liberty, and happiness across the world. Well, I'm not sure that's the right kind of perspective. I think the patriotic thing to do, and I call myself a British patriot, is to take a critical look at one's own history, I'm proud of the things I'm proud of in Britain are about a participatory system of government, about democracy, about cities like Manchester that grew built institutions that allowed kind of rapid social change to happen without social dislocation. And those are the things precisely that the British Empire denied to people across the rest of the world. So, for me, the British Empire has only to be regretted, because it denied kind of people across many parts of the world exactly the kind of institutions that people celebrated in Britain. And it was ruled by anxious and angry people who, as I suggested, kind of refused to kind of to share the sort of the arguments and the institutions of government that they themselves celebrated to other parts of the world.